Hi, Lisa here with Dawn, and today we're continuing our series, Fully Formed. Today's episode is going to be all about using self-trust as a strategy. Now, I'm actually going to kind of come in from the back end of this subject, the way that they rolled it out, talking about, because I think everyone can relate to when you're trying to trust your instincts and you're trying to trust yourself, oftentimes we overthink.
We always overthink.
Crowdsourcing. I thought crowdsourcing was a phenomenon. Instead of just like talking to all your friends. Like literally, when it really gets bad and obnoxious, it truly is like crowdsourcing.
It is.
So knowing that could potentially undermine the trust that you have within yourself, what do you do?
Yeah, you don't crowdsource. Don't crowdsource. I think you got to turn to your trusted advisors, right? You have your core people that you trust, and I think that you can have core people in different areas of your life, right? You have your professionals, you have your friends, you have people that you really trust that have been there for you through all kinds of milestones in business or personal life. And I think absolutely ask them if it's a huge decision and you have a couple of different ways to go about it, but just, hey, what do you think about this? And wait a second. So I will say, let me just take a step back. So when I'm trying to strategize a trial or a case presentation or something like that, I love a lot of feedback. I love a ton of feedback because I want to get everybody's perspective about all kinds of different ways. Maybe I didn't think about something a certain way. So there is something to be said for getting kind of that crowdsourcing, right? Like that.
Well, that's more like brainstorming.
Well, yes, it is more like brainstorming. But if you've made up your mind about something that you think is the right way to go and you've really considered it, then you start just bringing in all of this yapping from people that don't really have the influence that you have built. Yeah, I mean, not the influence that you built, but the trust. You don't have necessarily that trust with people. Then that only causes self-doubt. I mean, why do that?
Right. So at the end of the day, you don't want to get to the point wherein you are just questioning yourself, that you're not even taking into account the experience and the knowledge that you have. And I agree with you. I have my inner circle of people that I trust, and I will ask. I honestly, I feel like that's beneficial. But to go to the next level of really involving people that aren't part of your inner circle, I think that's where it really becomes a detriment to your growth and really trusting yourself.
What about asking somebody that you do trust? What about the situation where you trust this person, you really look up to this person, and you talk to them and they completely annihilate your idea? What about that?
That would be my husband. And I love it. I actually love it because my husband's take on things is I could say the sky is green and he would say it's purple.
Yeah.
But he would have a really great foundation and explanation as to why he thinks it's that way, and it gives me perspective to just view in a different way. Now, do I always, he gets frustrated. You never take my advice. And I'm like, honestly, I do. I take a lot of it because it's always such a different spin on everything. He's never meant in a manner that is to undermine what I'm doing. He's always meant to elevate and help me make a really a better decision, right? So in the scenario that you're talking about, when you've got someone that is honestly just so opposed to what your idea is, and you know that you're on the right track, I deflect. I turn, I go the other way, I change the subject, because I just know at that point we don't have to come to an agreement.
Yeah. I don't know. So there's this whole thing. So I always struggle with, there's a great book called Ego is the Enemy. I'm trying to think. Ryan Holloway, I think, is who wrote it. And I struggle with that because I feel like sometimes I worry too much about being right than doing it the proper way or something. I really have, especially within the last 5 years, I've really tried to make sure that I'm not fighting just to be right. Because, if you're a litigator, if you're in trial, if you're fighting every single day in everything you do, which is it's fine with me.
Right.
That's part of my, I love that. Right. I think that gives me energy, that gives me life, that gives me fire because I'm good at that. But are you arguing just to be right, or are you staying on a point just to be right, or is it the right thing to do? So I struggle with that.
Well, and I don't struggle with that because like one of my foundational sayings is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yes.
So I guess being a service provider, like I am perfectly placed because if a client says that something is a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to agree with them 100%, but I can definitely continue on and figure out a way to resolve the scenario, typically with options. I feel like if there is somebody who's disgruntled or there's conflict, that if you present more than one option on how to resolve it and you give them the opportunity to pick, even if a couple of them are so ridiculous they wouldn't, at least it shows you are trying. And so would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And at the end of the day, I really want to be happy.
So, but Lisa, that's a little bit different though. So that's in the context of like servicing your clients or servicing people. But when you're trying to make a decision, like an important decision about where your company is going or where your personal life is going, that's different, right? Because most of the time we're not making decisions that just impact us.
Right.
We're making decisions that impact a lot of people. So, I try to include people, I'm sure you do too, when we're making these life decisions. But if I really get entrenched and I think that this is the right way and I have a good reason for it, like I'm not being a jerk about it. I've really sat down, I've thought about it, I've considered it, and I really think this is the right way to go. Then if somebody that I respect has a completely different view on it.
Yes.
I mean, working through that and trying to not question yourself after that, it's really hard. That throws you off. And then can you really commit to that first decision? I think trying to listen to other people's opinion, making sure that you've considered it, making sure you're choosing yours if it's the right one for the right reasons. I think that's a little bit different than
that's a whole other level. I get what you're talking about. It's not just like a scenario wherein you're just trying to resolve a conflict. Like you're trying to make a really big decision that affects everybody from the top down.
Exactly.
Right? And oftentimes in those scenarios, like as frustrating as it can be, you don't know, time will tell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do at the moment? Do you hunker down and say, we're going to do it this way?
I think that's my latest transformation. I think a lot of times I got caught in the gray area. I would think it should be done this way. There would be another opinion about how we should do something. And then I would probably go with the other decision, but still trying to pull it a certain way. You know what I mean? I just think there are many different ways to accomplish something. And as long as you believe in it 100% that that's the right way, that and I don't know if you can believe anything 100%, but as long as you've done your homework, you've done your research, you've taken all of the steps to make the best decision in that moment for your company, for your life, if you're changing jobs, whatever, if you've done it, then I think you just have to commit and stick to it. Just having those outside influences kind of pulling you in all different directions and allowing self-doubt because of that, then your initial plan is not going to work to begin with.
Right.
Because you're not focused on that plan because you're already doubting that plan. If you don't believe it, then certainly nobody else is going to believe it. You have to believe what you're doing. So I don't know. I mean, I just feel like get all of the information, make the decision, and then you just have to commit.
Yeah, you have to trust in yourself. So where does intuition come into play?
Oh, I think every day. I think you really have to use your intuition. I think, our gut instinct is there for a reason. That is generations, that is evolution, that is all of the things that we've seen over time make us think this is the right way. And I really believe that many people discount their intuition or try to push it aside, and it almost always ends up being the right way. I mean, almost always.
Right.
And you try to say, well, am I being emotional? Or, wait, I should think about this more. most of the time that snap, that first instinct is the right one.
Yeah, and I think when you get in those stressful situations and you're trying to make a decision, especially if they're ongoing, like I have a girlfriend right now who's in a job that she's looking for another job, and she's in a leadership role. She loves the job. It's just like she's not getting support from upper management.
Right.
And so what has happened is she's not functioning the way she normally functions because she has such a sour taste in her mouth regarding management. Mm-hmm. So there's been some changes that have come about, and we had a conversation, and I said, well, what would you do if you were happy with management? Like, how would you introduce that? Or how would you welcome that person to the team if you weren't unhappy with the scenario right now? And I, for myself, I was like, gosh, that's such a good reminder. Because when you get in the thick of it and you get in the heat of it, I don't think we all, when you let the emotions get the best of you,
you can't see clearly.
You can't see clearly. And once you get outside of it, then it's like, oh, snap. I really should have functioned like I always do and should not have let the emotion not allow me to do the right thing.
So, but isn't emotion different than instinct?
Yes.
I think that there's a real fine line there too, because if you're in an emotional situation, then your instinct might tell you to do one thing where your calm self would probably tell you to do another, because all that noise going on that just distracts you from the peace in the moment and making that right decision.
Right.
So I think that is great advice, really good advice, because we are, when we get just so entrenched in what's happening on a daily basis, minute to minute basis, you have to be able to, kind of step out of that. How do you do that? How do you, when you get in that situation, like how do you pull yourself out to where you feel like you can operate in a way that you can trust your decision making?
For me, it just would be stepping away, like truly stepping away. Once something is heated, long ago, I developed the ability that I didn't need to say something right at that moment. Once you realize that you don't have to respond like that, and you give yourself just a moment to think about it or to sleep on it, the perspective is so different. Like when you say something emotional in the heat of the moment, that's never anything that you would say, professionally or personally. It's never anything you would say when your head is more calm, when you've had some time to digest it and to figure out the appropriate response.
So I'm kind of trying to process that in the context of my Colby scores. So for everybody that doesn't know what a Colby score is, it's a personality test. They rank you in certain areas based on how you take tests. And I was like super obsessed with all these personality tests. I just think that they're fascinating. And we have our whole team takes them. And it really helps you be able to interact with people differently, because certain people hear things in a different way. It's good to know how your people hear things and react to things. But I'm a quick start on the Colby. There's four different categories, and the one I'm thinking about is, you are high in one category or two maybe, but I'm super high on the quick start category, which means I make decisions really quickly. And I always have, and I can move from one thing to another really, really quickly. Okay. I don't need to have a lot of time to kind of digest something or think about something or otherwise. So I would say on a daily basis, I'm making decisions very quickly. And I'm trying to think now, because there's certain times where, you get emotional and there's a lot going on. And I know that I now take the time to kind of step back and think about things a little bit. Like we had somebody that just quit without notice that I really liked, and I know the team really liked him a lot as well. And I was just trying to kind of process that and figure out the best way to react to that. But my initial decision about how I was going to react to it ended up being the one that I went with. So maybe the old me would have just automatically done it.
Yes.
And the new me thinks about it, but usually ends up doing it exactly the same as I would have anyway.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So even in the heat of the moment, even in, like, for example, in trial, just, in the heat of the moment, you're having to make so many decisions like so quickly because things are happening so quickly that I think it'd be really hard to be a very thoughtful person. You think about a lot ahead of time. So there's, when you're planning for a trial, which I think is a lot like planning for business.
Yeah.
You try to do everything you can to make sure you've gone through all the different scenarios. This could happen, that could happen. I will react to it this way, that way. But there's always stuff that happens that you cannot prepare for at all. So
in that instance, then you have to figure out how to function on the fly, and you have to have inherently self-trust.
Yes, 100%.
Like, that's why you're the perfect litigator.
Well, I don't know about perfect.
You are. You're able to make those adjustments. You're prepared before you go in, and then you intuitively know how to make the move.
But I doubt myself in business all the time. I'm not the same in business.
Yeah, I would say that, that's, for me, that was personally challenging too, because nobody taught me business. I just figured it out, as I went along.
But does anybody teach it? I know getting an MBA is important and all of that, but really it's just doing it. The things that happen to you on a daily basis running a business.
Yes.
It's hard to prepare for those things.
Yeah. Yes.
I doubt myself all the time in business. I look to you, because you've been through so much with your companies. But I try to make the best decisions that I can in that moment. But I think that a lot of times I hold myself back because of that ruminating, because of that, not trusting that I've made the right decision. So I don't know. I don't know how to overcome that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that the only time that you're ruminating is when it's such an upper level decision that really requires additional thought and time and effort, and maybe, not the crowdsourcing, but talking to that inner circle just to get some input there. But on the day to day, you're just making things happen. So you're at the level that you're at, you're not any different than anyone else who's running a business, who's just trying to make those really big decisions, that are life-changing, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about life-changing business decisions. You're not talking about the day-to-day.
No.
You've got all that handled.
Yeah.
And so
not not all the time, that's for sure. Things
but mostly, but you're really at a place where you're looking at okay, well, if we're going a new direction or if we're staying where we are, that's making a decision that is going to impact everybody from me down. And so those are the truly most difficult decisions to make.
But how do you go through that without self-doubt?
Right.
Because because you don't know the right path. You haven't done it before. You've talked to people that maybe have done it before, but from your experience, how do you navigate through those really hard decisions when you do have doubt about whether or not it's the perfect path, or if you could have taken another path?
Well, I think you just have to focus. The thing about it is that something has to be done. So a decision has to be made, and you say it all the time. You just have to hunker down, knock it out, move forward, and stick to it.
Right.
So, that whole...
Done is better than perfect.
Yeah, wavering, are we going to do this and that? I'm really more okay, just this is what we're doing, and we are running this into the ground until it's taken care of. And I know that it may seem oh gosh, that's easier said than done, because there is some back and forth when you're talking about decision making that affects an entire organization. But I know that there's a component that is just the one decision generally makes more sense than the other. Really, when you're presented with your options, you can often tell this isn't going to happen and this isn't going to happen, and we're probably going to have a merging of these two things, and this is how it's going to resolve. And then once you start down that path, there's constantly things that are changing, and you just have to be flexible enough, but yet stay within the focus to knock it out, but make changes and adjustments as you go along.
It's I'm just thinking about, kind of a the bicycle chain, right? Because you're moving yourself forward with that bicycle chain, and as the new tab comes up, I'm sure I'm not saying the right thing, but
Yeah.
as that new link comes up, you get traction, and then maybe it's another link and another link and another link, and you get more and more traction. So I think getting paralyzed by the decision is the worst thing anybody can do. Like, just, because so many people get paralyzed because if you can't make a decision, then you're just sitting there. Well, what's the right way to do it? But if you just make a decision, then there's going to be that new link that gets you to the next decision, the next decision, and you can always correct.
Right.
That's why my kids get so bogged down by making decisions sometimes, which makes me crazy. But I'm like, just make a decision, just commit, and then if that's not the right decision, just make another one.
You just make an adjustment.
Change, just make an adjustment.
Right.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the way you get through that self-doubt, because if you've made this decision, you can always correct it.
Well, and
this way or that
another
way.
really big difference in making a decision and, getting a little bit of momentum in a positive direction, obviously that fuels it. But if it doesn't go as it's planned and it's negative, are you somebody that's going to shut down, or are you just going to make the adjustments and push on? Like, you can't see those roadblocks as failures. They're life lessons, as sucky as they may be. They are life lessons for you to make an adjustment, trust your gut, trust your intuition, make an adjustment, and then get that momentum going again.
But you got to live through that.
Yes.
To learn that.
Yes.
That's the hardest
And
part.
oftentimes you still need a paycheck.
Paychecks are important.
Yeah, because honestly, it comes down to you still have to figure out how to make that business run and function on the daily while you're making these altering decisions at the top.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
And I guess one of the blessings was that when I went through the hard times and I did the layoffs, by the time we actually did the layoff, like, that was discussed a month ago. I had time, the staff didn't know, I had time to process and plan, and I was already on to the next thing by the time we actually did the layoff. So, dealing with the moment and the emotions of the staff and everybody there, I was in a much better place. And oftentimes that's what you're talking about. When you're upper management, your leadership, you're dealing with issues that the rest of the company doesn't know about. And then you have the time to process before it's implemented in a business.
So I have a question about, the people that support the business, right? The people that are doing the hard things on a daily basis, what can they do to really add value in a situation like that? I think that so many times people retract or retreat when things get hard.
Right.
And then there are certain people that kind of shine in those moments.
Yes.
And building alignment with those people early on, I think, is so important, because you don't really know who that other person is that you're working side by side with until you kind of get in the trenches and the bullets start flying. It's easy to be great when everything's easy.
Yes.
When things get hard, that's when you see who somebody really is. And then, being able to cultivate those people that are those warriors, those people that are going to stand next to you and help you get through that hard part. I think that's the most important thing in building a company, is building trust with those people.
Yes.
Because like with you, that's what you did. You had those core people that you build trust with. And I know that some of them kind of let you down there at the end in your mind in the moment. But they still were there and got you through a lot that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have. Right?
Yeah, most definitely. And you don't know who's going to rise to the occasion. It was interesting because we went through, throughout the years, there were a few years where we just went through where we would hire a young receptionist and she would promote out to another position in the company because, she was a go-getter, or, she just wouldn't last. And so finally we figured out, okay, we need a receptionist that's not going to do anything else but be a receptionist, because it is a very important position. And we interviewed this woman and called one of her references and, asked, what did you think of Judy? And he said, well, we were downsizing and everybody was going to be fired. But Judy was the one person who showed up every day regardless, was still professional, still pleasant, and was there until the very end, even though she knew her job was coming to a close. And I was like, that's the person for me. And Judy worked for us the entire time.
Yeah.
And so she is the shining example. And you just don't know when you put a lot of stress and strain on people, who's going to rise and who's going to fold. You don't know what their human nature, their instincts are going to do. But it is an interesting thing because people will surprise you.
They will surprise you.
They will surprise you. It's amazing the people that come to the table to help.
Mm-hmm. And if you're one of those people, if you're in a company, if you're at a law firm or another business to where you know that this is a place that you want to be, right? This is a company that I've chosen because of either the people or the topic or the subject matter. This is where I want to be. I think the goal, when I was younger, I was just trying to make myself indispensable.
Right.
What can I do? Because even if companies go through hard times, if you make yourself indispensable, then you're not going anywhere.
Right.
You will always be there. And to make yourself indispensable means that you have to kind of rise above. That means that when things get hard, you're there.
Yes.
And it's hard to be that person, but it feels good to be that person too.
Yeah, it does.
Standing next to somebody that you believe in through the hardest times. But I think making sure that you're building those alliances early on is the most important thing for longevity for you and for the company.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Just making yourself indispensable and building those relationships within the firm or the company because there's going to be the hard times, most definitely.
So, and don't doubt yourself either.
Right.
So, that's the thing is if you've committed to something, either your upper management or just starting out, if you believe you've taken the right path, then do everything that you can in that moment to be successful and to make the company successful. And that there's nothing that can be bad about that, in my opinion, because you can move to another job, but what growth are you going to take from where you are now to that next place?
Right.
If you don't trust yourself in that instinct, either about the person that you work with or the company that you work for, then you're not dedicated to growing yourself. And you can always take that. If something happens, you can always take that to the next company or to the next level.
So in the series Fully Formed, it was all about self-trust and trusting yourself and using it as a strategy. It's not perfect. You can make changes, you can make adjustments, but you honestly have to get to a place wherein you can trust yourself and not always in a place of self-doubt. So we're looking forward to sharing more in this series. If you have questions, comments, put them below or email us at hello@ladiesinlaw.com. Thank you.
See you next time.